Yeah, tear it up, bud.
All right.
Have you met my buddy?
Oh, wow. He's good looking.
Yeah, he's getting big.
My goodness. Is he the pit bull?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. How big
Yeah.
is he?
He's just over probably about 55 pounds, 60 pounds.
How old is he?
6 to 8 months. Well, I'd say no, probably 8 or 9 months. Yeah, he got his big boy teeth about a month and a half, 2 months ago.
Is he a pretty good guard dog?
Yeah, he's a good dog. Yeah.
Oh, he's so good.
He'll bark if he sees something that's peculiar.
Yeah. What's his name?
Cash.
Cash. Hey, Cash. Hey, Cash, can you hear me?
Cash, look.
Hey, buddy. Yeah, he looked there for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll watch TV. Most dogs don't seem to care or notice it, but I'll put on dog TV on YouTube, and they have videos of like squirrels in high def.
Yeah.
And he'll just sit there and stare at it, and every now and then, because there'll be the sounds of them and the speakers on the back of the TV, he'll go to the back of the TV. Maybe he's looking for them because he's like,
yeah.
Wait, where? You know what I mean?
He thinks they're in there, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, let me turn on this air conditioner right quick. These studio lights are making it kind of hot in here.
Bet.
I'm trying a new look here on the studio, as far as like my set and everything. You probably can't tell, but I'm like way high up in the air.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. This thing right here is like up on the wall,
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So I'm sitting, way up here. You'll be able to tell on those other cameras, when I make the video. Now, what do you think about we edit this video and get it down to the good parts, and then do it like a preview? What do you think about that?
Yeah.
A premiere. That's what it's called, a premiere.
Like a premiere. Yeah.
Have you heard about those yet?
About what?
It's on YouTube. It's a feature that YouTube has now, and you can either, you can take your video and then you advertise it, and you send out invitations to everybody to watch the video, like several days from now. Yeah. And then we invite people to watch it, and then then it's streaming live at that time, and there's a chat room, and we're in the chat room with everybody else. So instead of focusing on our conversation, we're sitting there with everybody else talking.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. Yeah.
I heard about that. YouTube's got a bunch of kick-ass shit, and then Vinny Eastwood, I was on his show a few weeks ago, and he did that. He turned it into a premiere. He released it that same day, but his setup's a little bit different. And I think we should wait a few days. That way we can try to generate some interest,
Yeah.
Or watch it ourselves first, see if it's something we want to, premiere,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that sounds cool, man.
Is getting back to this Tartarian deal or this mud flood deal, some information that I've learned is that there was more than one flood cataclysm. And at first they were talking about meteors and comets and all this weird shit, and I thought it might have been something natural, but now they were starting to think that it's DEW weapons, directed energy weapons.
Yeah, DEWs.
Yeah, because these what they call the Carolina Bays or Carolina Basins or something. I think I sent you a link earlier. All those circular deals or elliptoid,
yeah.
They're just like all over the place over there on the East Coast, and they don't look natural.
And that's from high altitude?
Well, I don't know, but they look like the shit that happened on the moon. The big craters on the moon.
But those photos, because I saw a couple photos you sent. Those were high altitude.
Yeah, they were from airplanes.
Okay.
And so they've been discovered maybe, I don't know, 50 years ago or something. So I'm not sure what's up with that. But another aspect of this Tartarian architecture is many of these power stations had organs in them.
Yeah. Yeah. To the building.
And this brings back so many memories because I was heavily involved with the Methodist Church Choir growing up. As a matter of fact, we traveled all over the world, including Asia and Canada. And I was one of they used to have these plays that they'd hire New York directors from Broadway and stuff. And I was the child lead a couple of years in a row. So it was kind of a big deal. But at the United Methodist Church in Lubbock, Texas, they have the second biggest pipe organ in the United States.
Okay.
We're talking
which would play
massive.
That, Tartarian.
And it just so happens that the architecture of the First United Methodist Church is totally Gothic all the way. Exactly like these buildings we're seeing. Now, I'm not saying that I think that this is one of these buildings. I actually kind of think it's a recreation of, Gothic. I just don't know. But I've been up there around the spires and stuff like that, and it is, the stonework is weird. There is stuff that's definitely concrete, but then there's other stuff that looks like stone. But, I mean, what if the damn church that I went to growing up is one of these fucking buildings?
Right. And so back to what you were saying earlier about these buildings in New York, is it that there's a new stone facade over, like a veneer, over the old stone to make it look like it was built in a different time?
There's different things going on. And now, one thing that we're seeing as a common element is that they are bringing some of these buildings to the public's attention during World's Fairs. And then they are tearing them down after that. But not always. Sometimes they leave them up, sometimes they tear them down. Or in the case of San Francisco, one of the big pagodas, the huge pagodas, there was like 9 domes, and they tore down 8 of them and left 1 of them. Up until just recently, when they for some reason tore it down and then rebuilt it with a new facade. Okay, so it's hard to tell what's going on with that, but many of these buildings have been absolutely destroyed and demolished. They did not want people to see them.
Yeah, I've seen photos of like the Chicago World's Fair and buildings that are just not even there anymore. The skyline.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't even make sense. Why build these big buildings and then tear them down?
Yeah.
And
it's crazy.
In Spain, in the World's Fair, I think of like 1912 or something like that, or 1919, they supposedly built this thing. That's a PDF I sent you. This building is 210,000 square meters. Do you know how big that is?
That's massive.
5.1 acres. A building that is 5.1 acres, and they're claiming they built it in 52 days.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
And that's this hotel.
Yeah, it's a Hotel Internacional. And now I'm not sure if this is one that's been torn down or not, but there's plenty of pictures of it. And that PDF I sent you was all these meetings ahead of time where they were all stroking each other's egos, talking about what it was going to do. They had to have 1,000 guests and all this shit. Bullshit, man. That thing had been there for fucking 1,000 years, or 500 years. And what I'm starting to see is it's interesting how they can pull the wool over people's eyes. It's something that people grew up with. Sure, the people in that generation, they're not going to believe it, but their kids, and especially if it gets torn down, they can convince people that this shit was built in the 1800s when it was really built 500 years ago.
Right. It takes 3 generations to completely forget something, I've heard.
Yeah, and that's probably just with organically, not to mention with the mind
programming.
Yeah, I mean, it's
he who controls the past controls the future, right? Wasn't that Orwell?
Yeah, definitely.
He controls the past, controls the future.
One of these buildings is the Berlin Zoo.
Berlin Zoo?
Which is still there. It's totally Atlantean, everything. And they have these bells that chime that everyone that goes to the Berlin Zoo reports having a feeling of harmony and feeling good and everything. And so one thing that these organs and these bells
do...
do...
hospitals. Maybe they were hospitals, yeah.
Well, one thing that's said about this, whether it was mind control or what, but this sound, they used the sound as a weapon, but they also used it to bring harmony and make everybody feel good, and it also to create gigantism. Animals, plants, and people would grow bigger because of it. So maybe that's why they were giants, is because of this technology. Sound technology.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And another thing that's interesting is I've got an associate's degree, a junior college degree in sound technology. So I'm just like, everything comes full circle. I was like, wow, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you looked into, like, it's not Reich. Wilhelm Reich is the orgone, but there's a name like that, and it's sonar therapy for... or supersonic, or what's the damn terminology? For, like, I guess you can target tumors in the body with sound, with different hertz ranges. I want to say it's Rife. It sounds like Reich, but it's not.
Yeah,
it's a Reich or something like that.
I haven't. Yeah, no, I've heard stuff like that, but I'm not familiar with the scientists.
Sound.
Well, you know, there was that Japanese scientist who would play heavy metal music to water and then freeze it into ice cubes, and it would, if it was
Matsuro
soothing
Emoto.
Yeah. You know, he was assassinated. He's dead now.
Was he?
Yeah, he's dead.
I didn't know that.
He was assassinated. For sure.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That is wild.
They didn't want that
So
getting
this
out.
Tartarian, this Tartary goes back thousands of years, apparently. And there was, and sorry, this is kind of left field from there, but in just a cursory search of Crowley and Tartary, I found mention of Tartary in one of his poems.
Fascinating.
Aleister Crowley poem. We might want to pull it up for context.
Yeah.
And
like show it here on
screenshot
the screen.
or something.
Yeah. In the Bible, people are
Tartarus.
Tartarus, yes.
Tartarus was the Greek underworld through which the river Hades flowed. And allegedly, well, they say, modern archaeologists say that they know where that underground river is. And they... Cash, stop it.
Well, check this out. The etymology and the pronunciation. They're calling it this Tartarian Empire. Right? Tartarian Empire. Divide that word into two. Tart, Aryan.
Yeah.
Aryan.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Woo! Do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
So, yeah, for sure. So, but were there giants in the past, or did people just get really small all of a sudden?
I think there was giants in the past, and I think that there were some of them were cannibalistic. I think there was different kinds of giants. And, and it gets mixed up with this people with the elongated skulls, because that's one of my main topics of interest is in elongated skulls, and that these people were tall. I wouldn't necessarily say giants, but some of them were maybe 7 or 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
So they're borderline giants.
Skulls. In Paracas, Peru, where
the Paracas people.
Brian Forrester's looking into those.
And David Childress. And Maria Wheatley discovered them in Stonehenge. There's a mass grave of them in Stonehenge. They were summarily executed. They were 1,000 of them were run into some pit and executed. So what we're finding is that worldwide, the human species, the human beings slaughtered the elongated skulls people. And the Nazca people slaughtered the Paracas people. And so it's my idea that the Nazca lines shouldn't really be called the Nazca lines. They should be called the Paracas lines.
Sure. Yeah.
Because it wasn't the Nazca people didn't have shit to do with it. They came in and killed them.
Well, there's also a fascinating story in the Old Testament when God sent Jacob and Jake as a scout into the land of these Nephilim, this Nephilim tribe called Anakim, meaning sons of Anak. And Anak, I don't know if this is Cash. Chill, dude. Sit. Chill. Sorry, bro.
That's all right.
Anak purportedly, again, I can't verify this, and my Hebrew is not on point, but Anak, I've heard, means long neck. So that's interesting because it was a Nephilim tribe. A lot of people, there's a lot of misconceptions if you really understand what's happening at that period in the Old Testament. It's not that God was genocidal and just sending people to kill his other creation. He was sending people to kill and clean up the mess the fallen ones had made by creating these hybrid offspring that were running amok.
Yes.
Because all flesh had been corrupted.
Yes.
It was the reason for the whole flood and everything.
Yeah, except for Noah. Noah's lineage was still pure.
He was pure in his generations, yep.
Yeah. Now, so you said that Anakim, the giants, the Anakim, the Nephilim. Well, what does that remind us of? Anakin Skywalker.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What's up with that? Oh, and Anunnaki. Yeah, Anunnaki.
Yeah.
Now, one interesting thing about John Irwin is what Miles is saying, and I've got John Irwin's book. I bought it from him, and I've read part of it, but I hadn't read the whole thing. But I'm in the process. I'm going back to read the entire thing, and that is Beyond and Back. The 16. The secrets are in Jaraba. Miles says that, and I don't know if he says it's in this book or in some of the interviews, but apparently in John Irwin's career, there was at one point where he and the 16 were being trained by an extremely pale officer. And Miles has brought my attention to the tall whites, and he is starting to suspect that John Irwin is being handled or whatever by the tall whites. And these are the same tall whites that, there's that guy that guy that talks about him. He was in the desert with them at the weather station, Charles.
Yes. What was his name?
He's real soft spoken. He's like, yes, and he's a real nice guy, and then his wife goes around with him. I think he's telling the truth.
I've read some of this. I don't know that I've heard him speak. What's his last name?
I'm going to look it up right quick.
Okay.
It's Charles something, the tall whites.
Right.
But what Miles Johnson is saying is forget the reptilians. Everybody hates the reptilians. They ain't shit compared to the tall whites who are really fucking us off.
Okay.
That's what Miles thinks.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't entertain the alien stuff as much as I used to, absolutely, and just after certain super extraordinary experiences.
Charles Hall.
Okay.
Charles Hall.
Cash, no.
Tall whites, alien encounters, you have to closer. No, that's interesting that you say that. Now, I haven't had these experiences that you've had, but we've talked about them, some of your experiences on a couple of our episodes.
Yeah.
So anyone who's seen those knows a little bit about that. And there's a young man I'd like you to meet. His name is Paul Reyes. And I interviewed his mother, and she's an experiencer. And Jay Sexton thinks that she's like the most powerful psychic in the world or whatever. And I know her personally, and she turned me on to her son who's been having these experiences his whole life. And he lives in Alaska, and he's a young man named Paul Reyes. And I'll be damned if some of his experiences, a couple of them, don't sound almost word for word like experiences that you talked about in one of our interviews. I was like, man, I said, Bobby Bang Bang's got to hear about this shit.
Stop. Chill. Stay.
But, when I was a kid, I felt like I was ahead of the human race because I believed in UFOs, and I was smart, and everybody else was dumb because I believed in UFOs. And now that everyone's starting to believe in UFOs or believe in aliens, now I'm starting to say, no, that ain't real. I mean, it's wild, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that's how. Yeah, I can relate to that for sure.
I mean, yeah. I'm not that I think it's not real. It's definitely real. I just don't think it's what we're told it is. I just don't think that they're from outer space.
It's a real phenomenon. They're just not from outer space.
Yeah.
It has something to do with this people farm here.
The people what?
The people farm.
Yeah, the people farm. Exactly. We're on a farm and we're being harvested, as far as I can tell, for our psychic energy or for our emotions.
Yeah. Orgone.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, orgone, right, exactly. You know, electromagnetic something, you know. They say that, you know, these extreme emotions, so even extreme joy or something like that, but it's easier to produce extreme terror and misery in a human being cheaper than it is to produce extreme ecstasy or joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, some people
emotions. I've heard multiple theories about it, but like the emotions, the emotional energy, and especially those more like terror and things like that, terror and sorrow and those sort of things being louche, as it were, for that somehow is powering the Saturn moon matrix, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what.
I don't know the technicalities.
I don't either. And you know, there's, you know, these archons or whatever they are. They might be the referees or the coordinators of death. But whatever this energy is, and you know, I'm not psychic, but I have been told by a couple of my psychics that I'm almost kind of like a battery. In other words, for whatever this shit is, apparently I've got a lot of it, even though I'm not psychic. You know, but I kind of came up with this concept of, you know, the vampiric. You know, we know about the vampiric and the anti-vampiric. So the vampiric would be like Dracula, you know, vampirizing off people. The anti-vampiric would be like Van Helsing, you know, or humans that, you know, get preyed upon. And I was thinking to myself, what if there is a third group, the reverse vampiric? And this is just a thought, you know, just like writing a book or something, just a wild fantasy. And the idea with the reverse vampiric would be like a vampire that the other vampires feed upon. A vampire that the vampires feed upon and yet seems to have limitless energy. And so the vampires feed upon them, but they never grow tired. And in fact, the vampires that are feeding on them grow tired and they grow greater from being fed on by the vampires, like reverse vampiric.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
You know, just right. An idea, you know.
Yeah.
Just a wild idea.
Well, irregardless of anything that we can't confirm that is mind-boggling, there's definitely a parasitic presence that's dictating the past, the present, and the future of mankind.
But it might be somewhat symbiotic. In other words, even if who's to say that we're not somehow getting something beneficial from them? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, John Lamb Lash would not like that idea. He wouldn't like that idea at all. But, you know, some of these people that are the greatest, you know, human beings, whether they're athletes or artists or something like that, you know, maybe they're being preyed upon or something like that, but they're kind of getting something positive out of it, maybe. I don't know. Or maybe it just all comes from the power of the human being. I don't know.
Yeah, fascinating, man. I don't know. It gets so muddled, it's hard to... these rabbit holes, man, you know. You can get to where there's just so many possible scenarios floating around that it's
right. And so then what if this whole Tartarian thing is another dodge, another distraction?
Right.
But here's my point about that. We know that there's things that bring cognitive dissonance that I don't even talk about on this show and stuff like that. I'm just going to go ahead and say it, like the flat Earth theory and stuff like that. I'm absolutely do not believe in the flat Earth theory. I believe the Earth is a globe and it's a ball, but it does piss me off, and I do find it frustrating that all the facts do seem to be on the flat Earther side. You know, that's just weird.
And I'm in the other camp.
You're a flat Earther?
I'm not a glober.
Well, let me tell you, I think that they somehow might both be true, but of this Tartarian deal, I'm noticing a lot of the top people in the Tartarian mud flood deal are flat earthers.
Earthers, yeah. Well, because I think the concept of the dome as it would work on the working flat Earth model, that does make a lot of sense. At least the best model that we can come up with based on our own observations, without relying on known liars like NASA and world government organizations. We can, with what I'm seeing from people who may or may not know more than I can comprehend about how you can harness energy from the ether, are saying that these spires have to do with the way they can collect energy, and the dome has something to do with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, did you know about Werner? Do you know about Werner von Braun's headstone?
No. Tell me about it.
Well, Werner von Braun, you know who he was, right?
Yeah, my great uncle brought him into this country. I've got pictures of that in my book.
Head of NASA. He was Operation Paperclip Nazi, who would have been hung at Nuremberg for crimes against humanity. He was a right.
He was an SS officer.
Right. Well, on his tombstone, there's also rumors that on his deathbed he said that the end goal was to stage an alien invasion, and that was the whole reason for NASA and space race and getting people excited about space and then movies about it. And to me, it's all science fiction. But interestingly, on his tombstone, it says Psalms 19:1. And Psalms 19:1. Well, first of all, let me point out this is a man of science, right? What's he doing with a Christian psalm on his tombstone? Well, Psalms 19:1 says, "For the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork."
Yeah. I mean,
they knew something.
Space may be real, but we can't go there.
Yeah, we can. At least not in nuts and bolts.
That's right. And
chips.
Here's something that I bring up that I never hear anyone else bring up, and that is the idea, that the Egyptian pharaohs, that they were obsessed with space and these other constellations and stuff like that, and they wanted to do space travel. But what makes them different from everybody else? They had to be dead. They didn't do their space travel until they died.
Yeah, and that's why they have those passages that point right at certain.
And that's why I think some of the biggest spaceports in the world are the very maternity wards and hospitals that you and me were born in. That's a spaceport, is a hospital, a maternity ward. For sure. That's their space travel right there.
Yeah.
And the way out is the morgue.
That's the light you see. It's the light at the end of the tunnel.
Go to the light. Go to the light.
Zoom. Yeah, that's crazy.
I don't know if I've shared this idea with you, but it kind of plays into Tim Rifat's deal, and I think it almost plays into this Tartarian deal a little bit. But I found this out from a book I got, an obscure book from Rudolf Steiner about Ahriman, who's most basically the Satan in the Bible. And, of course, Satan and Lucifer are two completely different entities. And according to Steiner, Lucifer is in charge of electricity, and Satan or Ahriman is in charge of electromagnetism. They're both on two opposite ends, and you shouldn't hate either one because it's the Christ in the middle that's the fulcrum balancing them out.
The Ark of the Covenant, as it were, the Christ.
Something. Well, yeah, I don't know. I'm now starting to see the Christos might be Telestai, the male counterpart of Sophia, who is the Mother Earth. That might be the original idea of the Christos, and that it was hijacked, supposedly, in some people's opinions. That idea.
Also, and even biblically, Satan is the king of the air, the prince of the air.
Yeah. Well, see, that's why my God is below our feet, because that's real. No matter what we know in this life, it's like what I do for a living. I'm a real estate investor. Okay, how many professions have the word real in them? You know, it's not a real electrician, you're not a real plumber, you're not a real dishwasher, you're not a real doctor, but real estate is real. And that's the one thing that's fucking real. It was here before you got here, it'll be here when you're gone. But up in the sky is just a bunch of lies. You don't know what the fuck's up there. It's just a bunch of mirages.
Yeah.
And wandering signs and shit. But getting back to that, I'm not sure if this is a flat earth deal, but there's the star trails where you use time-lapse photography, and the stars go around in a circle, kind of arcing like that.
With Polaris in the center.
Yes, unless you go down to the equator.
The Southern Cross.
Half of them go one way and the other half go the other way. Counterclockwise. It's like two huge circles. And that, if we're on a sphere Earth, it wouldn't look like that. I mean, that's bizarre. If you go to the now I have not done this myself. This is on my bucket list, and I've got the inclinometer is the name of the little device. It'll hook into my camera, Canon camera, and it takes a time lapse. You know, every 30 seconds or whatever, minute, a picture. And that's how they get those star trails. But a lot of people are putting in star trail pictures that they're doing at the equator, and it's just like right down the middle. There's a line, and there's one circle going one way and one going the other way. What the hell? That's weird.
That's interesting.
Even Polaris. If we lived if the solar system was like what they tell us, the North Star wouldn't always be there.
Hey, I got one for you. You know Polaris ATVs?
Yeah.
They sell 4-wheelers and stuff like that. Can you think of their motto?
Well, I know their symbol is a star or some little group of stars.
It is a star. But it's Polaris, the way out.
Whoa. Yeah, it's just hidden in plain sight. And all this shit is they just flaunt it in front of us.
It's insane. It's nutty, man. It's exciting, too.
Yeah, and like a Carlos Castaneda and these ancient Toltec shamans, they said that life it's just all dreaming, that we're dreaming right now. But there's two different kinds of dreams. There's a dream while you're asleep, and there's a dream while you're awake. And that reminds me, let me sing a short little song. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when these ancient, story rhymes or, nursery rhymes hit you like that. You're like, what the fuck?
That's there are most all of them when you figure out what they're all about.
What they're really saying, yeah.
Yeah. Like everybody knows, I guess, Ring Around the Rosie, bubonic plague, right? They say.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Ring Around the Rosie, pocket full of posy, because the plague welts would have rosy rings around them.
Oh.
Pocket full of posies, flowers for the dead.
Ashes, we all fall down. That's a culling of the human race to get them back to a manageable number. One of the ideas on
so
this...
you think that is it looking like whatever parasitic race is managing this is using directed energy weapons for the resets, and culling at the same time, or that it could be a natural catastrophe that happens every so many years, no matter what.
I don't know. I think it's a directed energy weapons is my hunch that I've got right now. But one thing that's interesting is when they killed the giants or whatever using these directed energy weapons, and of course it didn't kill all of them. And we have pictures of like Tartarian, people out in Kazakhstan and shit that are like 10 feet tall and shit. But it also killed 90% of the human race. And so in a lot of these old pictures, like from the 1800s and shit, they'll show massive cities, and there'll be like 2 or 3 people there with a cart.
Yeah, yeah.
That, you know, and now that you see that and they say that, you can remember seeing this all your life. It's like these huge cities. Where are all the people? Oh, well, there's 4 people right there in the city.
And even in some of those, if to fit the timeline right, these buildings would have to have been brand new at that point, but they're looking decrepit.
Yeah, well, not so much like the cathedrals. Yeah, some of them are because they're stained black, you know, just because they're 1,000 years old or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, but these cathedrals, I'm thoroughly convinced that the cathedrals of Europe are Tartarian.
Healing centers, I think.
The architecture is just too extreme. And then not only that, the repetition of these fantastically ornate things, all perfectly the same. There's no way somebody could carve all that shit.
And back to that, how about Angkor Wat? Places like that. Angkor Wat in Cambodia.
It was supposedly built in a day, in one night.
Vast, like acres and acres. And it's again one of these things that just looks like it was 3D printed. The statuary is just incredible.
It's just it's Tartarian for sure.
Nuts.
You know, the flat Earth theory, the globe, and all this shit. Some of these other stuff, we can't get in a rocket ship and go, you know, out in space and look at this shit. But one thing's for sure, some of these buildings you and me have been in. You know, some like the post office in Philadelphia or some shit. I mean, there a lot of these prisons. There's these prisons that are huge, cyclopean. Couldn't ever fill them up with enough prisoners. You know, with ceilings that are like 60 feet tall and shit.
Yeah.
Post offices in Cincinnati, town halls with an organ in it, you know, all over the United States.
These massive doorways in places in like Italy and Greece. And there's
right here in Texas, the state capitol, made out of pink granite. I got in a fight with you know who the other day, and I went back to Austin, there's this little bullshit town right around there called Round Mountain. And I'm like, Round Mountain, what the fuck is that? So I drove over there, and I started asking around to the locals. I said, where's Round Mountain? They said, oh, you're here at Round Mountain. I said, no, this place was named after a mountain. I want to know where the Round Mountain is. And they were looking at me like I was crazy, of course. They all grew up there, and they just thought it was the whole place is called Round Mountain. Well, wouldn't you know, there happened to be a guy right there in the convenience store, and he had a little tidbit of information. Round Mountain isn't there anymore, because Round Mountain is where they got all the pink granite to build the state capitol. They leveled Round Mountain to get the granite. So read between the lines. They didn't quarry a bunch of granite. They fucking disassembled a goddamn pyramid.
Yeah.
A Tartarian something, and built the state capitol with the stones. And that was a Round Mountain.
Nuts.
Right? I mean, that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah,
because quarry, you dig into the ground. You don't just go disassemble some mountain that's round.
Yeah, scrap it.
That must have been pretty profound to call a hill. He said it was really a hill, but to call it Round Mountain, it's like, okay, what's really going on? It's probably a pyramid that had been covered up with so much sand or mud. It had been covered with a mud flood, right? And it was just a big round hill.
What do you think about what I was saying about how a lot of these buildings look like they wouldn't withstand that kind of situation structurally? They're not fortified for. I'm talking like simple buildings. You know, housing and
right. Okay, well, there are Tartarian deals, whether they're rebuilt or whatever, but there are ones made out of wood, and of course, no, those would not survive.
Yeah.
But the ones that are made out of stone, I think definitely would survive and did survive. And it's possible. I mean, they're even saying that the Empire State Building is one of these buildings.
Tell me more about that. You started to tell me about, we see these photos of workers, these iconic, 1920s guys up there working. Now, what were you saying?
Well, first of all, the one where there's like 19 guys sitting there just like it's another day and they're like supposedly 9,000 feet in the sky or whatever. I haven't done all the research on that, but just looking at that after I know what I know now, I mean, that was a 100-year-old version of Photoshop or something. They just had a bunch of guys sitting in front of a big backdrop, and took a picture because it's way too focused. You know, it's just way too. The picture's way too good. But what I'm talking about is this guy who's up there fixing the Empire State Building, working on it. He's a worker. He has a big wrench, and he has it on a rivet, around a rivet. The Empire State Building is riveted together with hot rivets. What's he doing with the wrench up there? That doesn't even make sense.
Okay.
It's just all staged, dude. They even, I think, did that on purpose just to show people how ignorant they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just some guy, oh, well, let's fix it, you know. And they just made the memory go away.
Even like Stonehenge, I've seen photos of the stones at Stonehenge where the outside of the stone has fallen off and it's clearly a concrete block with some kind of like stone facade over the top of it to make it look like something it's not.
Yeah.
And heard speculation that, or, you know, I don't know, it wasn't there, but I've heard that they were built, you know, in the 1900s.
Right. Well, you know, I mean, everything's a fucking lobby. You know, Andrew Bashago, who is doing the Mars jump rooms and going back in town and all that shit. There's one of these doctors who is from DARPA who is like one of his handlers, but they were putting this guy through the program too. Real smart guy, older guy. I don't even know if he's alive anymore. And he had a real inquisitive, and he disagreed with Andrew Bashago on a couple things, but he went back there in time or whatever and went back to where Abraham Lincoln was shot and everything. And he said, fuck it. And he started tearing the shit apart, looking under it. And some of that shit was made from Home Depot. Some of the stuff from the Ford Theater where Abraham Lincoln was killed was from Home Depot.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't heard that Basiago story, but he's a fascinating character to me.
Yeah, he's totally duped.
And he seems genuine.
He believes it. He believes it, but he's been totally duped. He
stands to lose everything for even speaking about it because he's a reputable attorney.
Unless he's a shill.
And he's not selling any books. So he stands to gain nothing unless he's an absolute pro-intel.
Yeah, which he is. Yeah. I mean, his dad was a big shot at DARPA. He ran for president. Did you know that?
Yes, 2016.
I mean,
yeah.
Come on, man. Come on,
yeah.
Dude.
Exciting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I think Basiago is fascinating.
Yeah, I do too.
Phil Schneider was either a complete agent or telling the truth.
Yeah, or telling his truth. That's the way that he understood it. And now you know William Cooper, the most famous conspiracy theorist of all.
They martyred him.
Yeah, they did. And I don't know if you know this, but he accused my great-uncle in his biggest book, Behold a Pale Horse. He accused congressional leader George Mahon of being the one who started the dumb bases, the deep underground bases, joint military/alien bases.
Did not know that.
Yes, my great uncle is in that book being accused.
I need to read that book again, dude. Yeah. That's awesome.
He's been accused of some other things too.
What do you think about all this intellectual dark web stuff with Jordan Peterson and Shapiro and these Weinstein brothers and you know, it's Joe Rogan and
what's going on? Fill me in on
it. Just all these debates, social justice warrior-ish topics, extreme left versus extreme right. It's a lot of polarizing.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, it all just seems contrived. I mean, it seems.
Joe Rogan's COINTEL Pro. Joe Rogan's COINTEL Pro all the way, just like Alex Jones.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Who's proved it is Josh Reeves. Josh Reeves has proved beyond a shadow of a doubt they're free zoners. It's a type of Scientology without being associated with the Church of Scientology. All the big politicians are in it. Scientology, I thought the religion that I'm in, the Lema, I thought that was going to be the New World religion. It's not. The New World religion is Scientology. And they're already the CIA's already taken over. They're getting rid of Miscavige. They're putting Tom Cruise in there. And it's
happening?
It's happening in front of our very eyes. It's the New World religion. Yeah, Scientology.
That old Elron, man.
Yeah, yeah.
What a science fiction author.
Oh yeah, yeah. And
Well,
interestingly enough, he and you know my real name and everything, but the bad guy in his books, the Emperor, the Mad Emperor of the Universe, has the same name I've got, is Kingu, except with an "u" on the end of it. Kingu.
really?
Yeah, Qingu. But all those people actually believed, and supposedly even believed it, that Kingu was reincarnated as Jesus Christ, or so. I mean, they have the weirdest idea. It's
Wow.
they're
Yeah.
out there, dude. They're out there.
Yeah, they are.
It's almost as if some of this occult shit and some of these secret societies, it doesn't even matter whether it's true. They believe it to empower themselves or something, to create a new reality or something. It's like believing something you don't even believe.
Yeah.
Deciding I'm going to believe this. I'm going to use my willpower to believe this, and then it's somehow going to make it true.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Yeah, and I think even on a bigger scale, it's like it matters what the people believe. That's the biggest. That's the biggest weapon, belief. You know what I mean? It's a powerful thing. So and even when you look at this like flat Earth versus globe Earth type thing, again, you've just polarized. You're still dividing and conquering.
Yeah.
So and what if it isn't either? It's 100th monkey type Schumann resonance, collective manifestation that whatever enough people believe, that's what it is.
Yeah. Like that our belief really does create reality. So they're using our beliefs to program a reality for them.
Yes.
I mean, if that's the truth, if that's what it really is, and that's just mind-blowing.
It is. It is mind-blowing. And what if we're writing the simulation? We're already in, like a simulation, and we're just basically programming it as we go with these thoughts.
If that's true, then some of the worst offenders who are really maybe doing the worst damage are people like you and me in the truther community who are out here talking about these ideas as if they're real.
Yeah.
Maybe actually helping them become real. You know, like we're led around with a ring in our nose. You know what I mean? Like they're using us. They're using humanity, yeah, but they're using us in particular to like guide humanity into a certain, because we're so against it, we're so, we hate this and we hate that, we don't think it's right, but yet we're really the main advertisers for it. What if that's the case?
Yeah.
I mean, that's sick.
That's
dude.
a trip, dude. Yeah.
That is sick.
Dude, check out what I got here. You were talking about Dr. Emoto, water experiment, the consciousness, right? Consciousness affecting water, water holding memory. Is he making too much noise, Cash, over here?
No, he's not bothering me at all.
He's acting up because I'm talking.
Yeah.
Not talking to him.
He wants you to pay attention to him.
Yeah, so he's just running amok.
Uh-huh.
But so here, what I've got. This is one of those cyclones, like a water cyclone, with 4 neodymium rare earth magnets in it, with opposite poles touching. So I use it to restructure my water. Usually I'm doing distilled water, but I'll add certain minerals to it sometimes. And so what it does, when you vortex the water through it, say 3 or 4, 5 times, it will recharge. It gives the water a positive charge. Oh, I forgot that I'm using sparkling water, so I'm actually I'm about to make a bomb, I guess.
Yeah.
Going easy.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get this on film.
I forgot which water I had.
I'll put it on. I'll put your demise on YouTube, okay?
Yeah. Here we got a shoe. Got a shoe covered in water.
Okay, yeah, I got it, yeah.
But anyway, the point is, you run regular distilled water through it. Say you pour a bowl of the water pre-structure, like before you structure the water with this, you have a bowl of that, and then you have a bowl of the structured water. Oh, what's he got? You set them in front of your pet, and your will always go for structured water. It tastes softer. It's incredible, dude.
You set it in front
There's
of your
absolutely
pet like
something
an
to it.
animal?
Yeah, if you set it in front of a cat or a dog, you take a bowl of the structured water that you've ran through those magnets in the cyclone, and then you take some that you've not done that to, and they'll go to the one that's structured.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
so that's structured water versus unstructured water. Well, and this is the word I'm coming up with for this water. They didn't use this in any of the advertisements or anything. But what I'm talking about is dead water versus live water, and the idea that we've been drinking. Yeah, I'm thinking that what you're doing may be the same as this. This is one of these Tartarian filters, which has, of course, charcoal activated like a regular filter, but it also has something that you get in a rock shop, tourmaline or something like that.
Tourmaline is known for if you're worried about radiation from microwaves and things like that, you don't want your iPhone to make you infertile or whatever. They actually make tourmaline phone cases because it'll absorb that microwave radiation.
This is a tourmaline water filter.
That's badass, dude.
It is, and it came up by a scientist in Canada. And check this, what it does is there's a laboratory instrument called an ORP meter, ORP meter, and what it measures is the oxidization. Okay, because what we have is cellular oxidization damage, but we have another word for that. What everybody on the street knows cellular oxidization damage is. It's called aging. That's what aging is, cellular oxidization damage. Just like how your headlights...
You broke it up.
Aging. Cellular oxidization damage.
Oh.
Oxidation damage is aging. They are one and the same thing.
Wow.
Skin getting saggy and all this stuff. Now, on the headlights of your car, you know how they get smoky?